Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Nelson, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Political Science and Economics at Meiji University. My research focuses on contemporary Japanese cinema, Japanese visual media, and Japanese popular culture, in particular Japanese horror films. Today, I'm going to be talking about Japanese cinema, Japanese horror, and the Japanese YouTube channel Fake Documentary Q. And I'll just say at the start that while the topic of my talk is Japanese horror films, none of the clips or images I will show today are particularly graphic or NSFW. Some of them might be a little spooky, but there are no jump scares or gore, and I think you should be fine to watch them even if you're not really a horror movie person. So let me go ahead and share my slides with you. Right. Okay, so as you can see, the title of my talk is The Edge of Cinema, Japanese Horror in a Changing Media Landscape. So in this talk, I will begin with a little bit of context and background on the history of Japanese horror cinema and how it exists today. I'll then talk about the rise of what a lot of people are calling horror entertainment and its impact on Japanese horror films and Japanese cinema as a whole. And finally, I'll discuss my recent research on the Japanese horror YouTube channel Fake Documentary Q and what Fake Documentary Q can tell us about the changing nature of horror cinema and Japanese cinema as a whole. So first, though, I'd just like to talk a little bit about this talk's connection to sustainable development goals. Specifically, I think you can connect the themes of my talk to SDG number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Today, I'm going to be talking about cinema and media industries, the innovations that are changing those industries, and also the different types of infrastructures that keep them running. So, looking again at the title of my talk, what do I mean when I say the edge of cinema? Well, let's unpack this a little bit. Naturally, the cinema industry, both in Japan and elsewhere, has never been static. In the past 100 years, we have seen shifts from major studios controlling everything to a mix of indie and studio work, from a rigidly hierarchical system to one in which young potential directors could get their start without having to labor in the trenches for years, from a system in which women were woefully underrepresented in directing and producing to one in which they are finally getting opportunities to direct and get recognition, though the Japanese film industry unfortunately still remains a very hostile place for women to work. And also, more recently, from a business model focused primarily on film distribution via movie theaters to one that has expanded into direct to video and now streaming markets. Though, again, the Japanese movie theater, the film industry remains very strongly tied to the primacy of the movie theater. And so when I talk about the edge of cinema, I'm talking about forms of visual media that exist on the periphery and yet remain strongly connected to or have a profound impact on traditional Japanese cinema. This might include the huge volume of video content that is produced on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and Nico Nico, and the fan-created paratexts like music videos, visual art, and fan edits that bolster the popularity of certain films, while also occasionally dancing on the line of copyright violations. Basically, while a lot of contemporary visual media might not be classified as cinema per se, it is heavily influenced by and has a profound impact on traditional cinema. And so, by examining visual media that exists at the edge of cinema, we can also begin to understand the changing landscape of film, video streaming, and physical media in Japan and around the world. Um, and when we talk about the edge of cinema and media that exists on the periphery, I think it's inevitable that we'll end up talking about Japanese horror cinema, which has a long history of pushing different kinds of boundaries. A lot of Japanese horror directors got their start in straight-to-video genres. Some Japanese horror films are produced by major studios, and some are very indie. And many Japanese horror films have been popular subjects for English language remakes. Before I get to where Japanese horror is today, I'll talk just a little bit about its origins and its past. Many of you are probably familiar with the term J-horror, which generally refers to Japanese horror films. You might be familiar with the film The Ring or The Grudge, probably the most successful examples of the genre and the ones that got high-profile remakes in English. The Grudge recently also had a miniseries on Netflix. J-horror enjoyed a brief boom in both domestic and international popularity from the late 1990s to the early 2000s. And when a lot of people say J-horror, they're referring not just to Japanese horror movies, but to a specific group of films produced from the late 90s to the early 2000s and made by a small group of directors like Kiyoshi Kurosawa, Hideo Nakata, and Takashi Shimizu, with similar themes, stories, and aesthetics. Um, but the boom was brief. And since the early 2000s, the majority of Japanese horror films that might still be classified as J-horror in the sense that they were made by that same group of directors and had a similar style have not been box office successes and have generally just not been very good. There have been a few outliers. And today, I would argue that a lot of Japanese horror exists on the periphery, simply meaning that it does not take the form of studio produced feature length films, although those certainly still exist. One interesting example, director Kiyoshi Kurosawa, one of the few horror directors in Japan who is often considered an auteur, and who has also made highly regarded films outside the horror genre, released a short film in 2024 called Chime as an NFT, available via a Japanese digital video trading site called Roadstead. Now, the means of distribution here seems kind of unnecessarily complicated, especially for anyone outside Japan, but it is intriguing that Kurosawa chose to, one, make a short film rather than a feature-length one, and two, to distribute the film in this way. So let's take a look at the trailer for Chime. So, another interesting recent example, let's look at the top 10 Japanese films in terms of box office for 2024. Thank you to Aaron Giroux for posting this data on social media. Aaron was pointing out that only one non-Japanese film made the top 10. That was one of the latest Despicable Me movies. And it was an animated film. So we can see that domestic films still tend to dominate the Japanese box office. But what I immediately noticed on this list was the horror film Hen Not Yet, or a Strange House, which came in at number 8. Now, this is unusual given that most Japanese horror films of the last 20 years have not been big money makers. Really, the only one that was ever a huge financial success was the original The Ring. Also, the 2020 film Howling Village, but arguably that was because it was one of the last films to be shown in theaters before all Japanese movie theaters effectively shut down in 2020 during the pandemic. So it was surprising in 2024 to see a Japanese horror film cracking the box office top 10. Now, Hen Not Yet was produced by major Japanese studio Toho, so it's hardly a scrappy indie outlier. But what's intriguing to me is that Hen Not Yet began as a very successful YouTube video from the channel Uketsu, which as of late December 2024 had 23 million views, a pretty significant number for a YouTube video in Japanese. The video is very simple. It's just a person in a mask telling a story with everyone's voices slightly auto-tuned about a house with an odd floor plan. The YouTube channel also has put out a series of books, one of which, Strange Pictures, just got an English translation. So let's take a look at a few minutes of the Strange House video. I recommend watching the whole thing online. It's on YouTube with subtitles. It's very entertaining and honestly better than the film. But I'll just show the first few minutes here so you can get a sense of what it's like.
これはある家の間取り図です。あなたにはこの家の異常さがわかりますか？おそらく一見しただけではごくありふれた民家に見えるでしょう。しかし注意深く隅々まで見ると家中そこかしこに奇妙な違和感が存在することに気づくはずです。その違和感が重なり、やがて一つの恐ろしく信じがたい事実に結びつくのです。もう一度ご覧ください。あなたにはこの家の異常さがわかりますか？こんにちは、ウキスと申します。私の知人に柳岡さんという人がおりまして、先日彼からとある相談を受けました。柳岡さんには近々第一子が生まれるらしく、それを機に家を買う決心をしたそうです。不動産屋を回り、彼は都内にいい一軒家を見つけました。駅から近い割に近隣に自然も多く、中古ではあるもののなかなか綺麗な家だと言います。ただ一つ、間取りに不可解な点がありました。1階、リビングと台所の間に謎の空間があるのです。ドアがないため中に入ることができず、不動産屋に聞いてもよくわからないと言います。住む上で不都合はないけど、なんとなく気味が悪いので、この家を買うべきかどうか悩んでいるそうです。偶然にも私の知り合いに設計士をしている栗原さんという人がいるので、その人に相談してみることにしました。もしもし、栗原さんですか？お久しぶりです。ウケツと申します。事情を話したところ、一度間取りを見てみたいとのことで、図面のコピーを送り、後日また電話をする約束をしました。もしもし、ウケツです。
どうも、栗原です。
栗原さん、どうも。
例の間取り図が届きまして、どうですか？今、時間大丈夫ですか？
はい、大丈夫です。1階にドアのない謎の空間があるということなんですけど、これって何だと思いますか？
一概には言えないですが、一つ確かなのは、これが意図的に作られたものだということですね。
意図的にですか？
はい、図面を見てください。この空間は台所に接した2枚の壁によって作られています。この壁がなければ空間は生まれないし、台所も広くなりますよね。台所を圧迫してまでわざわざここに壁を建てたということは、この空間が必要だったということです。
なるほど。何に必要だったんでしょうか？
もしかして最初はここを収納スペースか何かにする予定だったんじゃないですかね。例えばリビング側に扉をつければクローゼットとして使えるし、台所に作れば食器棚になります。
確かに。
だけど途中で気が変わったか、もしくは費用が足りなくなったかで、扉をつける前に断念したんじゃないでしょうか。その時にはすでに工事が進んでいて、間取りを変更することができずに無の空間が残されたとか、そんなところだと思いますよ。
なるほど。じゃあ、怖い話みたいなことではないんですね。
そうですね。ただ、ちなみにこの家って中古物件ですよね。前の住人はどんな人だったんでしょうか？
確か30代の男性で、奥さんと子供が一人いたそうです。
この家はその人が建てたんですか？
はい、そうみたいです。
ちなみに仕事は何をされてたかわかりますか？
いやー、そこまではちょっと。それが何か？
いや、最初にこの間取りを見たときに、ずいぶん変な家だなって思ったんですよね。
そうですか？謎の空間以外特に気にならなかったんですけど。
私が変だと思ったのは、2階の間取りなんです。
2階？
子供部屋を見てください。何か違和感を覚えませんか？
あれ、ドアが2つある。二重扉？
そうです。それにドアの位置もおかしいんです。例えば階段で2階に来て子供部屋に入るには相当遠回りをしないといけませんよね。廊下に一つドアをつければ済むのに、なんでこんなめんどくさい設計にしたんでしょうか。
確かに変ですね。
Now, obviously, there are a lot of reasons that films fail or succeed, but in the case of the Strange House film, I would argue that the story's incredible popularity as a YouTube video, which was featured heavily in the movie's marketing, there's a poster there that points to the number of YouTube views. Um, and it definitely played a role in the film's success. And this also points to the growing influence of YouTube and other social media video content as a powerful force in the Japanese entertainment industry. And when it comes to Japanese horror, a lot of the most interesting stuff is happening online or in less traditional formats. And while that sometimes leads to success in traditional forms, like a feature film produced by a major studio, sometimes those stories stay in their little niche corners of the internet, which is frankly where a lot of younger media consumers tend to hang out these days. I know that my own students here at Meiji University seem to spend most of their free time watching YouTube rather than watching mainstream TV and movies, and maybe it's the same for you. So this leads to all kinds of questions and occasional hand-wringing about the future of Japanese cinema, and maybe cinema as a whole. Are YouTube and other platforms going to replace cinema? What about movie theaters? Will they survive? How strict should we be in defining what cinema is and isn't? And how can the evolution of Japanese horror, the trajectory of Japanese horror, offer a way to think about all of these questions? So let's start by talking a bit more about Japan and YouTube. So, as streaming has become a more powerful influence in the Japanese media landscape, a number of young Japanese YouTubers have achieved a level of fame and success that would likely have been out of reach or taken much longer to achieve via the strictly hierarchical film and TV industry, in which young directors and writers frequently apprentice and work in lower level jobs for years before being given a chance to lead a project. While veteran TV hosts like Tetsuko Kuroyanagi still command large audiences with celebrity and politician interviews, they now have to compete with massively successful YouTubers like Hikakin, that's the guy with the glasses, whose 2020 YouTube interview with Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike eventually reached 11 million views. At the same time, social media has also provided opportunities for the less savvy to alienate large numbers of people, as the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, pictured there with his dog, discovered when he posted a video to Twitter of himself lounging around on the sofa, mixed with YouTuber Gen Hoshino playing guitar, urging people to stay home during the early months of the pandemic. Abe was basically criticized for being tone deaf to the suffering of people who did not have the option of simply relaxing at home for weeks at a time. YouTube continues to be a topic of mainstream Japanese news for its connection to antisocial or delinquent, bratty behavior, including a seeming rise in pranks and stunts like infamous videos of young men licking their fingers and then touching pieces of sushi going by on a conveyor belt. Another cause for concern is the fact that YouTuber continues to be ranked high on the list of an annual What Elementary Schoolers Want to Be list. Within this environment, horror entertainment channels on YouTube, while not achieving the same level of influence as the aforementioned Hikakin, have continued to grow in popularity. So let's take a look at some of these new forms of Japanese horror entertainment as they exist on YouTube. I've written before about how, from the 1990s to the present, the focus of Japanese horror has frequently shifted from haunted analog objects like phones and VHS cassettes to haunted digital objects like websites and streaming platforms. As sites like YouTube have grown in popularity in Japan, it's not surprising that, in addition to focusing on new media technologies within their narratives, a new generation of horror entertainment creators would choose to create and disseminate their work via online video platforms. Such horror entertainment channels include Zozozo, which makes videos exploring haunted spots in Japan that regularly reach over 5 million views, and Omaga Toki Film, a site that gives its haunted spot exploration videos spiciness ratings to warn viewers of how scary they are. Among this group of Japanese horror entertainment YouTube channels is Fake Documentary Q, hereafter FDQ, which provides found footage horror style videos that closely resemble short films. Intriguingly, while FDQ videos are being produced using some of the latest video production and dissemination tools and software like digital video editing and the YouTube platform, many of the channel's videos have the appearance of something filmed in the 1980s, with staticky borders appearing at the top and bottom of the frame and a washed out look. These short films also often focus on analog media devices like VHS cassettes, audio cassette recorders, and answering machine tapes. In this way, FDQ videos follow the recent trajectory of Japanese horror films and also take Japanese horror in new directions via a frequent mixing of interactive and analog media forms and content. FDQ's videos reimagine and remediate the found footage format for the YouTube age, but they also give new life to the analog media objects that feature so prominently in many of their videos. In the same way that, as Bolter and Grusin have argued, media are continually commenting on, reproducing, and replacing each other, FDQ's videos are part of an ongoing conversation between media objects past and present. This reimagining has profound implications for both horror media as a whole and the horror viewing experience. The FDQ YouTube channel uploaded its first video in August 2021. The channel is the creation of Daichi Minaguchi, who is also part of the team behind the popular horror-themed YouTube channel Zozozo, Kotaro Terauchi, Tsuru Fukui, and Kayoko Endo, who in 2024 also published a book that includes short story versions of the channel's videos as well as 2 new stories. As the channel's name indicates, all of the videos in the channel have a fake documentary or found footage format and frequently touch on curses, exorcisms, or hauntings. As of August 2024, FDQ had approximately 300,000 subscribers, and its videos typically received between 200,000 and 500,000 views, with the most successful video receiving over 1 million. Video comments often indicate that viewers have watched the videos multiple times to try to find clues that could solve the video's various mysteries. All of FDQ's videos follow a similar format. The videos typically begin with documentary-like footage and often include intertitles or voiceover explaining the footage. Videos average around 10 minutes in length. The longest is just over 37 minutes and the shortest is 6.5. Videos typically end with a black background and gray text that reveals the title and episode number. Sometimes this text is also shown at the beginning of the video. The videos typically have ambiguous endings, often with text or voiceover indicating that the mystery has not been solved or the missing person is still missing. There is no non-diegetic music unless music is included in the found footage that comes from fictional TV or news programs that make up part of the video. The acting style often feels improvisational and unscripted. Like so many films typical of the J-horror genre, the videos project an atmosphere of unease and spookiness through hints that something supernatural is at work, as well as the sense that the people depicted are ordinary individuals dealing with extraordinary and often frightening events. Let's take a look at one of FDQ's early videos, Shinya no Rusuban Denwa, or Strange Messages. And I should say that while the channel began as Japanese only, all of its videos are now subtitled in English and have both Japanese and English subtitles, and sometimes English titles, and sometimes the English titles are quite different from the Japanese. So the Japanese title of this video is Strange, so it's answering machine messages in the middle of the night. But the English title is just Strange Messages. So let's take a look at that.
たずら電話がかかってくるようになりまして、ずーっと悩まされたんですけど、それで警察に相談したんです。留守番電話を買ったら証拠になりますよって。そうですね、もう30年前ぐらいになりますかしら。その時のものです。60件以上ぐらいの留守電が入ってるんですけど、お昼にかかってきてるのは普通のね、知ってる方とかが電話で留守電に入ってて、夜になると無言電話とか意味不明で怖いような電話が入ってたりもして、それが何を言ってるのかわからなくて、わけのわからない恐怖を覚えるような、何人かはわからないんですけどね、一人じゃないことは確かです。
ただいま留守にしています。発信音の後にお話しください。金曜日午前2時10分です。土曜日午前2時19分です。日曜日午前3時49分です。
しくどうぞ。ただいま留守にしています。発信音の後にお話しください。
So in this video, the FDQ team claims to receive a package containing an answering machine mini cassette. A woman's voiceover recounts how almost 30 years ago she received a series of strange answering machine messages late at night. The bulk of the strange messages video consists of a close-up of the mini cassette's messages being played on a small tape recorder, with occasional cuts to someone's hand holding the recorder and rewinding portions of it to play the messages again. Most of the messages are unintelligible, but when they are slowed down, they become easier to understand. One is a series of numbers, 6541, and one sounds like someone saying, "You saw me, didn't you?" 私の目があったでしょ? After 6 minutes, we hear the final message, a woman's voice clearly saying, "I want to talk with you, please give me a call." It's not clear if the woman is calling the FTQ team or calling the person who's been leaving her the messages. On-screen text says only, "It's all a mystery," and this is kind of a typical ending for FTQ videos. Much of the effectiveness of this video comes down to its very careful use of sound and a small number of simple images. The beginning of the video takes its time, focusing on a still image of the mini cassette and then an image of a 1990s era landline phone and answering machine combo. One of the YouTube users commented that they enjoyed the video's depiction of lost technology like the microcassette and the Iowa cassette player, which you can see here. After each message, we repeatedly hear a robotic answering machine voice stating the time of the call. Each message is preceded by a single beep and then followed by a series of louder beeping sounds that would seem to indicate a busy signal. A disembodied hand is shown rewinding the cassette tape several times, which makes a high-pitched noise. Even more so than images, for many people of a certain age, it is these noises that immediately evoke feelings of nostalgia for devices that are now obsolete but were once omnipresent. Here, though, this piece of auditory nostalgia is presented within the frame of a YouTube video, which also exposes the user to the more recent sounds of mouse and keyboard clicks if the video is being viewed on a computer, or mostly silence if the video is being viewed via a smartphone or tablet with a touchscreen. The juxtaposition of these two forms of media makes users aware of both the disruption and connection between them. Another FDQ video, Ihin, or What the Deceased Left Behind, plays on the popular trope of photographs that appear ghostly due to warping, a type of photo which also appeared in The Ring. This time, though, the photos are not physical but digital, found on the type of digital point-and-shoot camera that was popular before the advent of high-quality smartphone cameras. Before the photos are revealed in the video, on-screen text tells us that there is a lot of noise in the photos due to the digital files being corrupted or hasonshita. Where the physical photos in The Ring showed faces that were blurred or twisted, indicating that the photos might have been damaged during the physical photo developing process, these digital photos are full of bars covered in red, yellow, and blue, signs that the files are digitally corrupted. The faces of the people in the photos also have black bars over their eyes, showing that the photos have likely been edited with smartphone or computer editing software. What the Deceased Left Behind presents an older form of media, digital photos taken with a point-and-shoot camera within a YouTube video, with the photos having been edited by yet another form of newer media editing software. Within the video, we see the perspective of someone moving through the digital photo collection, the photos moving horizontally across the screen, accompanied by a digital shutter click sound. We, though, can also control this movement via the YouTube scroll bar, pausing even longer on certain images or speeding up the camera roll. We might also choose to take a screenshot of one of the images, which we could then easily share or upload elsewhere. Like so many FTQ videos, this one turns a passive media object into an interactive one, creating a viewing experience in which our hyper-awareness of the many layers of remediation at play is part of the pleasure of viewing. So let's take a look at a clip from What the Deceased Left Behind.
今思うと、直人さんは当時、心の病気だったのかもしれない、と考えているのだそうだ。亡くなる前、直人さんは幽霊の姿が見える、と周りに話していたのだという。
花とかじゃあ持ち帰って。
持ち帰ります？
行けようかな。
あ、行きます。じゃあ俺持って帰ります。
この辺のなんかゴミとか散らかしちゃダメだし、
さっきなんか
なんか結構ゴミあるね。
ほら、発泡スチロールとか割とありますよ。持って帰ります。せっかくだし。
ちょっと拾おうか。
ね。
だね。
せめてきれいにね。
直人の周りのとこだけきれいにして帰ろう。
あ、これもゴミか。もう切ったね。
これなんすかそれ？なんかわかるかも。
カバン？
カバンっぽい。
ね、カバンだね。
中見てみましょうよ。
これちょっとさ、俺わかる。直人かな？
それは遺体と一緒に発見されなかった直人さんの私物だと思われるカバンであった。
小説だ。
このメガネ見覚えあるな。こういうのね撮ってたやつ。よくスナップで。
ああ、そうやったかな。
確かに山の上の時持ってきてたかも。
あいつ多分結構撮ってるこういうので。
入ってんのかね、なんか映ってんのかね。
データあるのかな。
直人さんの遺族に中身を確認してもらうため、そのカバンを持ち帰ることにした。
持って帰ろう。
じゃあ帰りましょう。
後日、デジカメのデータを確認したところ、この荷物は間違いなく直人さんのものであることが証明されたという。これから復元されたすべての写真をご紹介します。破損したデータを復元したものなので、画像に大きなノイズがあります。生前の直人さんの姿があった。それ以降は、すべてあの山だと思われる写真であった。直人さんの先を歩く何者かの姿。その後ろ姿は直人さんにそっくりなのだそうだ。この写真は誰か別の人が撮影したのだろうか。さらに デジカメに残されていた最後の写真。これが生前直人さんが言っていた幽霊の姿なのだろうか。
So, the connection between Japanese horror and haunted media arguably began with its narrative content, with stories of cursed analog media evolving into stories of cursed online videos and other interactive content. The stories remained very similar, but a curse's method of transmission changed from making physical copies of VHS cassettes to uploading videos online, to one individual at a time watching something on a TV, to thousands of people tuning into a Nico Nico or YouTube live stream. Nico Nico is a platform that is similar to YouTube and based in Japan, where the ring featured a spiritually corrupted physical object. Sadako from 2019 featured digitally corrupted YouTube videos. FDQ continues this nonlinear trajectory of remediation and reinvention, but now the sedimented layers, as Jussi Parikka calls them, in these media archaeological finds are spread throughout content, user interface, and platform. FDQ's videos display older media forms within the frame of a YouTube video. They allow the video's contents to be reshaped through the more interactive nature of YouTube commenting, and they encourage viewers to watch, pause, rewind, and rewatch, interacting with the videos in the same way that they might have once interacted with a video or audio cassette. Like so many interactive media objects, FDQ's videos have, again, Parikka found an afterlife in new contexts, new hands, new screens, and machines. The videos remediate older media forms and force viewers to view and engage with them in different ways. So now I'd like to return to this idea of the edge of cinema. As I hope I've shown, the trajectory of Japanese horror in cinema and video reveals an analog to digital to analog movement, not only in the focus of Japanese horror stories, but in the means of their creation and dissemination. And this shift is further complicated by channels like FDQ, which are created using the latest forms of digital video and streaming technology, but often focus their stories on analog media objects. The academic on analog media objects. As the Japanese cinema industry continues to evolve, I don't necessarily propose that we all happily accept many of these innovations and infrastructural changes, particularly when those changes lead to further exploitation of workers and the production of films that are more driven by algorithms than human creativity. I do think, though, that we could all benefit from a point of view that brings the edges closer to the center and that acknowledges that Japanese cinema takes many forms and grows out of many places. YouTube and other video streaming platforms will likely continue to be deeply entwined with the with the Japanese cinema industry for years to come, even if it can be hard to imagine what new forms these stories will take. TikTok is a dominant force now in the media, but it has only existed for a few years and seems to be kind of unstable, at least in the US. In the years to come, our engagement with cinema might include watching a film in a Japanese theater that was inspired by a YouTube video, downloading a short film released as an NFT, and watching it in our homes, or using the academic video essay to explore new ways of analyzing film and other visual media. In the same way that Japanese horror's evolution has followed an occasionally looping trajectory from analog to digital and back again, our own relationship with Japanese cinema over the next decade will likely move us from the center to the periphery and back again. All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm just going to close my slides here. All right, if you are interested in this topic, I encourage you to seek out the fake documentary Q, Uketsu, and Zozozo YouTube channels. All of those have English subtitles, and also the Strange Pictures English translation. Thank you very much for your time and attention.